Welcome to the Businesstalk podcast. I am your host Deepak from India. We are delighted to welcome Dr. Michael Platt, James S. Riepe University Professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania as our distinguished guest on today's podcast. Dr. Michael is known for asking some of the most challenging questions in 21st century neuroscience and for conceiving innovative ways to answer them. His research explores the biological mechanism that underlie decision-making in social environments, offering profound insights into how our brains drive choices that shape health, behavior, and welfare across societies. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Dr. Platt ventures far beyond traditional neuroscience. His work bridges psychology, economics, evolutionary biology, and ethology, and his collaborations across these fields have deepened scientific understanding of the neural foundations of cognition behavior. A pioneer in neuroeconomics, Dr. Platt was among the first to challenge the long-held belief that decision-making is purely a reactive sensory motor process. Instead, he introduced an economic mathematical framework for studying the psychology of choice, an approach that has since transformed research methods and data analysis across brain science. A former president of the Society of Neuroeconomics, Dr. Platt's groundbreaking research has been supported by the National Institute of Health, Sloan Foundation, Liechtenstein Foundation, McDonnell Foundation, and the US Department of Defense. His work has been featured in leading scientific journals as well as major media outlets, including television, radio, and print. His publications have been cited over 4,000 times, and his scientific expertise has been sought for 3 major motion pictures and an upcoming episode of HBO Vice. Dr. Platt's widely acclaimed book, The Leader's Brain, has recently been released in an updated and expanded edition. Now, the James S. Riepe University Professor at the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Platt has returned to his alma mater where he earned his PhD in biological anthropology to continue his mission of integrating knowledge across disciplines. Through his leadership, he is helping position Penn at the forefront of neuroscience, psychology, and economics, driving innovations that enhance human decision making and health worldwide. Dr. Platt also directs the Water Neuroscience Initiative, a vibrant community uniting faculty, students, and professionals to connect brain science with business and advance understanding of how people think, design, and lead. In this episode, Dr. Michael Platt shares key insights from his research, how celebrity status and guest direction in ads drive visual attention and shape consumer decisions. Now let's not keep you waiting. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Michael Platt to the conversation. Professor Michael, we are truly honored that you have accepted our invitation and delighted to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Deepak. It's a real honor and pleasure to be with you.
Professor, what inspired you to explore the intersection of celebrity endorsement and guest direction, two seemingly distinct drivers of consumer attention in the context of advertising psychology?
Yeah, it's a great question. If you think about it, there's no reason why we should care at all about what celebrities endorse or what they think. These are people you will be very unlikely to meet in your life, so they're not going to have a big impact on your life, on your decisions, on your behavior. So it always was a puzzle to me, but my thinking about that was actually shaped by the work that I do kind of on the biological anthropology and neuroscience side, where about, like half of my research career I've spent, well, actually my whole research career, studying the behavior and brains of primates, and in particular rhesus macaques, but primates in general. And we had shown a couple of decades ago that just like people, monkeys value the opportunity to look at, to get information about essentially monkey celebrities. So high status monkeys, they'll give up some reward to see those. Sexy monkeys, they'll give up some reward to see those. We showed that the exact same principles affect what people choose. And we also showed a long time ago that monkeys are very attentive to where other monkeys are looking. So if one monkey turns and looks that way, of course, you turn and look in the same direction. And that attraction of attention is more powerful when the monkey you see is a celebrity or a high power monkey. And One of the things I've learned over the course of my career is that there's so many similarities between primates and us. So we share 95% of our genes. Our brains are wired up in the same way, and many of our behaviors are so similar. I always say there's a little monkey in all of us. So to me, what we see in the patterns of our attentiveness to celebrities, right? And the fact that that shapes celebrity endorsements shape what we purchase, what we pay attention to. My hypothesis was that was driven by a deeply, deeply baked in prioritization of information about the highest status, sexiest individuals in your group. And what's very important about them is what they think is important, what they're paying attention to. So that was the motivating idea behind the study.
Professor, celebrity endorsements are known to boost brand recall and awareness. What gap did you see in understanding and how they influence the decision-making process itself?
Well, what we wanted to do was to use what is currently understood to be the very best computational model of how our brains make decisions and see if we could use that to inform why and how celebrity status, if an endorser of a product, and also where they're looking, how that affects what we subsequently choose. So the idea was to bring, the state of the art in neuroscience of decision making to bear on this kind of basic question in consumer psychology.
Your study emphasizes the role of gaze cueing in shaping visual attention. Could you explain in simple terms how following a celebrity's gaze can unconsciously guide a consumer's choice?
Sure. Well, the way we actually did the study was to bring people into the lab and then we presented them with ads, and those ads either had celebrities or non-celebrities who were rated the same level of attractiveness, and either they were looking out at the consumer or looking at the product. One thing that's really interesting is if you actually go and look at ads, we had students run through thousands of ads in the real world. Rarely do you see the endorser looking at the product itself. They're usually looking out at the viewer. And we thought, well, that's not very good. If they look at the product, that's going to be much more effective at drawing attention to it or to the brand, right? So, so we ran this study. We measured choices subsequently. Would you choose a brand or a product that had been endorsed by a celebrity or a non-celebrity, and how was that affected by where they were looking? And we tracked where people looked, and we measured their pupil size. And we know that there's a very strong connection between where we look and what we choose, because what we look at is turned up in the brain. What we're not looking at is turned down. And pupil size you can think of as an index of how secure we are, how certain we are, our confidence in the choice that we made. Okay, and so what we found is that actually, there are two parts to this. One is that celebrities, just their very presence in an ad, boosted the likelihood that somebody would subsequently choose that product, just as had been known. That was directly connected to how much they ended up looking at that product. And having a celebrity there seemed to inspire confidence in that choice. So even if you knew nothing about that product, you'd never chosen it before, your pupils didn't dilate when you chose it. That pupil dilation is an emotional response when you're kind of worried, when you're kind of scared, right? Uh, we also found this interesting effect, which is that non-celebrities didn't do that, right? They didn't generally evoke a higher likelihood of choosing the product and didn't keep your pupils from dilating. But we did find that if the non-celebrity is actually looking at the product, then that boosted attention to it and that increased the value. So in terms of, I know you're going to get to this question in a bit, but in terms of practical lessons from this, what this means, for example, imagine you are a small company, a startup, a small cap, or you provide marketing services, but you can't afford to hire a celebrity, right? Ideally, you'd hire a celebrity to endorse your product, endorse your brand. Well, you can hire an equivalently attractive person, but make sure that they're actually looking, their gaze is actually on the product in your ads. because that can essentially overcome, right, the lack of having a celebrity endorser. So it's a way to make the most out of your money.
Very interesting. Professor, the study used a combination of eye tracking, pupillometry, and computational modeling. How did integrating these methods help you uncover the underlying cognitive processes that simpler behavioral studies might miss?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's a really good question. It's so as I mentioned earlier, this computational model, which has honestly been around since World War II, but it's been really developed and refined. And it what it says is that basically when we make a decision, we are sequentially sampling the world for pieces of information that favor, let's say there are two options, one or the other options. It's like there's two buckets in your head, right? One for product A and one for product B. Every time you get a piece of information favoring one or the other, it goes into one of the other buckets. Whichever bucket fills up first is the winner. That's the one you tend to choose. And we know that this is the right model. And what's really important about it is that it includes both time, how long it takes you to make a decision, and which choice you made. Most models that are used in decision science, in marketing, only look at the choice. The time is really critical because when the evidence is really strong or when our preferences are really strong, it takes less time to make a decision. And when the evidence is weak or we're conflicted, it takes a much longer time to make that decision. Okay. That accounts for decision making in a much better way than every other model, and is how our brains do it. Because if you stick electrodes in the brain, you can see this evidence accumulation process. Now, what's interesting is that in terms of the eye tracking and pupillometry, as I began to allude to earlier, where we look is very closely tied to what we choose. Okay, because what you're looking at, let's say there are two products. If I'm looking at product A more, information about product A is getting turned up in the brain. That's turning up the flow of information into the product A bucket, making it more likely to win and to fill up much faster than it would otherwise. Okay, so that attention is the mediating variable, the mediating process that guides what we end up choosing. And by capturing what our pupils do, okay, that gives us a purchase into another process in the brain, which is an emotional response. It's an arousal response. So our pupils dilate when we're scared, our pupils dilate when we're uncertain, our pupils dilate when, we're emotionally charged. And so when we put all that together, that gives us all that data together, it gives us a much deeper, richer understanding of the decision-making process. In this case, how that process is shaped by, the presence of a celebrity endorser or not, as well as where they're looking. Okay, because an endorser and looking at a product is going to really turn up the volume, really turn up the flow into that product A bucket, right? Because our own attention, our own gaze is so strongly shaped by by celebrity and by where that celebrity is looking.
Professor, you mentioned that celebrity endorsement can shift the starting point and rate of evidence accumulation in decision making. How do these findings align with what we know from neuroscience about attention and reward systems?
Yeah, so if we think about these two buckets filling up, okay, we already talked about where you're looking, attention being a way to turn up the flow into one bucket at the expense of the other. So that's part of that accumulation to threshold process that's in the model. And the starting point for accumulation is what we call bias. So think of it this way. If you come into a situation where there are two options, but you already have a slight preference for one over the other, then that bucket is a little bit full already. Let's say it's 20% filled up. So you have less to go. You need to collect less information to actually make that choice. You'll end up being biased to favor product A over product B, and you'll actually make the decision much more quickly.
Professor, from a marketer's perspective, how can brands practically use insights from your research, especially around guest direction, to design more effective visual advertisements?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think it'd be very powerful for marketers to pay attention themselves to what the work that we're doing because we're applying the most robust, informative, biologically plausible, biological instantiation of decision making in the brain. Like we really know this, front to back, sideways. This is how brains make choices. And so if you're not using that model, which is pretty straightforward, computationally, you're missing out, right? And so this gives us a richer portrait, and it also helps us to understand where you can have an impact, right? So let's imagine your product is no better than the competing product, but you somehow got to, acquire customers and you want to keep those customers. So you can do that by shaping their attention, right? By making the product stand out more, make it more salient, put a celebrity, sitting next to it, or have them looking deeply at the product. All of those things draw attention to the product itself and make us feel more positive about it and more secure about it. And that means you kind of got a head start, on the competition. And like I mentioned earlier, you can substitute for a celebrity if you can't afford it by hiring someone who's a lookalike, let's say, and use their attention, their gaze, very effectively as an indicator of what's important to draw the consumer's attention to the product and the brand information.
Professor, do these findings raise ethical questions about how much advertisers can or should leverage unconscious gaze cueing to influence consumer decisions?
Yeah, I mean, we care a lot about the ethical, legal, and societal, issues that attend the work that we do. Marketers have been trying to use subconscious ways to influence consumers forever, for at least 100 years. And I think that this is no different. I think we need to be very clear that and transparent about what we're doing, and not rob people of their agency. I think that if we get this right, then you can help connect, the right consumer, the right customer with the right product at the right time. This can potentially reduce the attentional demands on them, which we know right now, living in an attention economy, it's hugely demanding. We see the average person sees something like 10,000 ads, a day or something. That's been estimated anyway. That's a lot of load for the brain to have to deal with. So I think if we get it right, potentially people can be happier. I don't think we marketers are in any way a position to completely rob people of their agency. Because let's say you were really effective at shaping consumer attention to a product and a brand, and they buy it, and then let's say they don't enjoy it. Well, our brains have very powerful mechanisms for learning from experience, right? This is one of the most powerful, one of the most ancient mechanisms in our brains. And so when we have that bad experience, that error signal that is fed back into the system to make it less likely that we will choose a product or brand the next time, right? So that's a bias against it.
Dr. Platt, did your research reveal whether the type of celebrity, say, a trusted expert versus a pop culture icon affects how strongly gaze and attention biases influence consumer choices?
So we did not look at different types of celebrities or different, or whether influencers versus movie stars versus, sports icons. I mean, I think that would be amazing, fascinating study to do. Certainly, if anybody's out there and wants to partner with us on that, we would love to do that.
Professor, do you think cultural differences or advertising context, like social media versus television, might alter how gaze direction and celebrity status interact to affect attention?
So it's a great question. Most studies of this sort have been done in the West, right? In the US in particular. So one could certainly, mm, it's certainly a possibility that there are cultural influences. All the work that we've done, that others have done in other cultures suggests that there's a set of human universals that we respond to, that are, slightly modulated by particulars of the culture that's in question. I think it's absolutely vital to validate that these are universals. But we've done work, for example, looking at using brain signals to predict sales of products based on just a couple dozen people watching advertisements. And there are a number of these signals that we can extract very easily from the brain. And and the predictiveness is just as good in China as it is in the US. So that suggests that there are uniform, universal principles underlying these effects.
Dr. Michael, I would like to conclude this episode with one last question. Where do you see this line of research heading next? Could similar guest queuing effect be observed with virtual influencer or AI generated celebrities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. We are now in the age of AI generated influencers, just celebrities in general. An AI generated song just cracked the Billboard charts for the first time, which is really remarkable. Uh, we could definitely dive into that. I think that would be huge. I love. I kind of want to conclude with something that my MBA students did. So the capstone project for my course, which is Applied Neuroscience for Business, is that teams of students have to, at the very end of the course, pitch a business that addresses some opportunity or pain point, delivers a solution. It has to be based in neuroscience, and then they talk about the business plan. And this one team was awesome because it was called Doppelganger. And the idea was, and it was based on this celebrity status and gaze direction paper. It was an AI-based platform for identifying. Basically, you upload pictures of yourself or other people, and this system, this app would identify the best celebrity match you were. And we already know that doppelgangers, those are people who are celebrity lookalikes, get paid a lot of money just to show up at events or to be in ads, even though everybody knows it's not the real celebrity. So, given our work showing that you can substitute for a celebrity with a non-celebrity just by altering where they're looking, maybe this is a system, right? I'm thinking about the future where we can kind of populate and provide opportunities for people to serve as these stand-ins for celebrities in a way that can be, bring value to everybody, to the doppelgangers themselves, and also to the companies that are using them. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, to go around here.
Thank you, Dr. Michael Platt, for sharing your remarkable insights on how neuroscience helps us understand decision making, attention, and human behavior. Your pioneering work at the intersection of brain science, psychology, and economics continues to expand the boundaries of knowledge and its real world applications. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Business Talk. Thank you once again for joining.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and I love the conversation.